Everybody, it's Tracy. Today I am going to talk about adult children of narcissistic parents. I am an adult child of a narcissistic parent. She's gone now, and I found out too late, but there's hope for you. There's hope if you can learn about it now, learn better skills to cope. So my guest today is Debbie Tudor. She is a therapist, and she just wrote a new book, which I was so excited to get. It's called It's Not You, It's Them, 30 Days of Hope and Help for the Adult Child of a Narcissistic Parent. There it is. And her name is Debbie Tudor. And we're going to talk about how you can find this book. But what I like about it is it's kind of a workbook. When we talk about doing the work, this is what we're talking about, guys. There aren't very many books out there for adult children of narcissistic parents. Dr. Carol McBride's book is one that you want to read if you're looking at discovering this. But let's see what Debbie has to say to us today, because she's got some really great answers. Thank you so much for joining me, Debbie.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, when you shared with me your new book, It's Not You, It's Them, the 30 Days of Hope, Help for the Adult Child of a Narcissistic Parent. It's a workbook, and I loved it. I was so excited to see it because I know it's part of the do the work that people need to learn about. So I'm so glad to bring you to the show and introduce your book to everybody. When you were thinking about writing this book, was there a personal link to deciding to write a book about adult children of narcissistic parents?
I had years of seeing the same patterns in my clients. I found myself saying the same things to my clients over and over. And then in my personal life, I've struggled my whole life with a difficult mother. Now, even though I have the degrees and I know the diagnostic tools, I had never put narcissism onto her until I started reading and studying myself. And when I first heard Dr. Carol McBride's description of the family of a narcissist with a narcissist in the middle and the enabler parent circling them to protect them like a planet around the sun, and the children floating in space, uncared for as far as their emotional needs, it just was like a Mack truck hit me. I had an answer. I finally had something that made sense. And it also explained why when I would have therapy patients and I would try to bring their parent in to the session, and it always was a disaster, I finally realized that that's why I needed special training in this area. And above and beyond my degrees and my license, I needed to know what this was all about. So for myself and for my patients. And the most gratifying part of this is I have developed an in-between, between no contact and just putting yourself out there to be hurt. I have developed protected contact, and that is a tool that I use with my patients, and it's also in my book.
Well, I wasn't even going to go there, but tell me a little bit more about protected contact.
Protected contact just says never be alone with a narcissist. So many people are not ready to cut off contact with their parents. It's just not feasible. Maybe they have elderly parents. Maybe they just aren't ready to make that final step. And I take everybody where they are. Mm-hmm. I know it took me years to go no contact. And protected contact just says, I have a protector. It's often your spouse. It can be a good friend. It can be a family member that you trust. And basically, you put them as a protector between you and the narcissist. So they read the email. You don't even read the email. You send them straight to the protector, and they read it and decide, yes, Debbie, you need to know she's going in the hospital, or no, Debbie, this was just another tirade against you. You put the phone on speaker when you're with a narcissist, and you never talk to them by yourself. You never get in the car with them alone. These are just ways to have someone around you to buffer and to protect you, because one sigh from a narcissist can set you back for months on a time.
Oh, yeah.
This also works real well when you're co-parenting with a narcissist. And I have many of my clients who have someone else read the family wizard email or the text from the narcissist just to keep you safe.
And that is such an important point. I love the idea. I hadn't even really thought of like a narc buddy to have with you to protect you from the narcissist. Like we could have a new superhero called the narc superhero.
Absolutely.
I know that for me, as well as so many of my clients and people that I have in my groups, I think, and I could be wrong, because my no contact with my relationship narcs was court ordered. I could never see them again, and I'm really happy about that. So my no contact is different than others. But when it comes to going no contact with a parent and a sibling, there is nothing more frightening, in my opinion, because if you disown mom, you don't talk to her to protect yourself, suddenly you're the bad guy in the family, and everyone else hates you. And you're making a decision to really have no family. If you make that choice, it's a big one. How do you help people overcome if they are able to go no contact, but there's that fear that I had inside me, and to know that what it means, what it could mean. Like, you still might be able to remain in a relationship with your sibling, just not at Thanksgiving, just not when everyone's together. How do you help people through that fear of breaking contact with their only support system?
Well, the first thing you do is you normalize the fear. We are raised as children to survive, and we have deep instincts inside of us that tell us how to survive. When you're raised with a narcissist, you learn to survive by laying low, giving up your needs, letting everybody else have their way, and just staying out of the reach of the slap or the verbal slap. And so that's a survival instinct deep inside of every one of us. And so when we grow up, we still have that survival instinct of, I have to have contact or I might die. And that sounds dramatic, but on the biological level of our bodies, there's a belief that we will die without contact with our parents. And so it's not easy. And I'm very compassionate toward people, and I've struggled with it myself. It's a very, very hard decision. So I gently coax them through and help them come to the level of contact that they can stand. Now, interestingly enough, many female narcissists will behave themselves and put on the charm around other people, especially men. So if you're a female scapegoat and your husband is around, he can be your protector because she will turn on the charm for him. Most of the time, narcissists care so much about the spotlight that they will not misbehave in front of others. So that is why protected contact works so well. And it's a compromise between just cutting them off forever. You can send gifts from a distance if you feel like that's your duty. You don't have to pick up the snake to know it's a snake. You can admire it from a distance and say, okay, be well, little snake, here's a gift for you. But that doesn't mean you go back into the fray.
Right. And I think for some of my people, the birthday card, that's the hardest part. The Mother's Day card. Oh my God, I have struggled. She's passed now, but I would hate Hallmark on those days. I'd be in the aisles and I'm like, no.
If they would
mean to me.
I have heard that story hundreds of times and experienced it myself. Yes, these Hallmark holidays is what I call them, and they're very, very difficult. There's a lot of social pressure in the Hallmark holidays.
Absolutely. And I think that, it re-triggers somebody who does have a narcissistic fear, because suddenly they don't feel like it's Mother's Day, everyone's going out to eat and have brunch.
I know.
And you're sitting there at Walgreens digging for a card that doesn't say I don't think we're alone. I think that's a very common thing, but I know it's a hurdle that we have to accept and Um, I went to strictly a birthday card or Mother's Day card that I could write something in. And while I thought that was somewhat more personal, I think my mother would have preferred the, "Oh, you're such a wonderful
Oh, I
baby."
know.
Put it
I
on the
know.
wall and say to
Mhm.
all of the other people in the hospital, "Look, I have a daughter that loves me. I got a
Mhm.
card."
No, they don't say loves me. They say, look what a good mother I am. Everything is about them. The spotlight is on them, and your job is to make them look good. I often say, and it's in the book also, that they wear you like jewelry, which is why it's so confusing when people say, you don't talk to your mother? Well, she just thinks the world of you. She brags on you all the time. Yeah, to you. You should hear the private phone conversation.
Yeah, that was something that confused me my whole life. For many, many years, my parents lived in Mexico, and my mother was always adopting somebody as her daughter. And I'd be like, "Well, what about us? Oh, I can't go now. I have to go get a present for Sue for Christmas." And I'm like, she doesn't get us a present. I get a check every year. Here's your money. Have a good Christmas. There was never any thought behind buying me a present. There was never any thought to her telling me that she's going to go make this effort for someone else isn't going to hurt me, you know?
One of the meditations in my book is titled, You've Been Replaced. And it's exactly that. They will find someone else. They will put them on Facebook as their daughter or son.
Mm-hmm.
They like to rub that in.
Yeah, I never understood that until I read your book and a few others that's just like their behaviors, and it's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have a manual too? Because, when we have a romantic, relationship, people are like, is there a manual? Because they all sound the same. So do narcissistic parents just like get injected in their head when they give birth or something?
We're not real sure the origins of the disease. We have some thoughts. I see patterns, especially in men, that they have enabling mothers that protect them, say that they're special, don't require them to behave themselves. I've got several patients in my history who are strong, hardworking women, and their narcissistic exes live with mommy, and they end up paying for them to live with mommy in the court system. And it's happened enough times that I'm seeing it as a pattern for a narcissistic ex.
Wow. Well, you can raise my hand on the ex-husband living with mommy now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
See, there's another one.
I was when I met him, he was probably 35, still living at home. And
Yep.
I accepted I probably lived in 20 places by then. I'd been married, had a kid, and he's still living at home. That was just weird to me. But
Right.
on the flip side, the listening to the excuses of why he's still living at home as if that's going to justify it was that they had a very big home. They had a 30,000 square foot house, so they didn't really see each other.
Mm-hmm.
When you did, trust me, it wasn't good, but that's another story. But as soon as the divorce was over, in fact, I think part of my divorce was that I didn't want to go move back into his parents' house. And he did. And now that big old house is in his name. And so it's not like he's living at mommy and daddy's, even though mommy and daddy live there now. Great. The whole thing. So the question to you is do you see in your practice more adult female or male of parents?
Just by the way our culture is set up, women are much more likely to come to therapy. But I have a very few men. But I don't think it's because there are men who don't have narcissistic parents. I think it's because men in our culture are not encouraged to express their emotions and to heal. It's just part of the macho-ness of where we are. So over 25 years of practice, I've always had a very small ratio of men to women as patients.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a function of not having a narcissistic parent. I think it's a function of therapy is more taboo for men than for women.
Right. And I'm just guessing this, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But for men that I see that have had a narcissistic parent, um, I don't know how to say this the right way. I don't want to say they're stronger, but they don't take it on as much. A woman is maybe a narcissistic mother to a daughter, to me, is a very painful thing. They say a lot of hurtful things. They do a lot of things to manipulate. And in some ways, and I know not all men and not all situations, not all mothers do this, but in some men, it's less of abuse, if that makes sense, where they're not as put in the gutter as the others.
It depends on if it's a same-sex parent that's a narcissist or not. Same-sex parent narcissist, so if a boy had a father that was narcissistic, it's very devastating because he can't be the jewel on his father's crown. He can't do enough to live up. And then oftentimes his father wants to hold him back and keep him from being more than he is. So it depends more on if it's same sex. So for a daughter and a mother, it's devastating. For a father and a son, it's devastating.
Right. That goes into the question about siblings, because I grew up middle, 3 girls. And do all of the children get affected the same way? Like if you were to take one mother and look at her 3 daughters, because I know we've got the scapegoat, the golden child, and I don't know where I was in the middle there. We have different roles, but do we all get affected, or does somebody get to escape?
No, absolutely. Everyone in the family is affected by a narcissist because they're not going to get the nurture they need. And most of the time, my clients don't even know what is different about their childhood. I didn't know. I mean, I had food, right? I had a roof. So it's not until you find out that other people had love and nurture and cuddling. Sometimes it's when you have your own children and you just naturally want to hug them and love them and tuck them in bed at night. And you think, oh, I didn't get that. Where did that come from? Mm-hmm. So it affects everyone. The golden child daughter would be the most crippled. The golden child is always the most crippled as an adult. And they're the ones who do not seek help. They just can't. They often become either narcissists themselves or they're just so crippled by the upbringing.
Wow, you've just described my sister. I wrote it down. Yeah, and that explains. I mean, you would think because she was the golden child, everything was perfect. To me, not being the golden child, I always envied her. She got mom's attention, but you're saying it didn't work out that way.
No, because she got the attention to reflect back on mom, not to nurture her.
Right, that makes sense.
And it's just so crippling. Scapegoats are chosen for their strength. They are chosen because they can bear the burdens of the family. Yes. And even in biblical times, and the word scapegoat coming from the stories in the New Testament or the Old Testament, where a goat was chosen for its strength and its ability to carry the sins of the village out into the wilderness. And so all the problems were dumped on the scapegoat. You're the problem. You've got all the issues, all the sins. Get out of here.
Wow.
And so those of us who are scapegoats are the ones who succeed in life. We're the ones who go on and make meaningful lives for ourselves. And we're the ones that go to therapy and say, time out, something's really wrong.
Wow, that's so helpful. Some of my other questions that I know people ask all the time are, how does it feel to be the daughter of the son of a narcissist? What kind of feelings do they get inside? I mean, insecurity and things like that.
Well, the I don't matter, the am I one too? I hear that very often. Scapegoats are so used to being blamed for everything that it's hard for them to believe that maybe this time it wasn't their fault. Mm-hmm. So am I one too is the single most asked question that I get from my clients. They do a lot of explaining. Let me tell you, Debbie, why they're the way they are. Let me tell you why my mother is so narcissist or whatever. And then they go into excuses and long lines of family history. And I have to gently bring them back and say, you know, that may be true, but this is about your healing. This is not about how they got that way. Mm-hmm. But scapegoats are so used to focusing on what mother needs or dad needed, what the narcissist needed, that it's hard for them to focus on what they need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to bring them back from that. And then, of course, it must be my fault. That sense of, and to get a little bit technical with the brain science here, when we're a child, we have egocentric operational thinking. That means that when I open my eyes, the world wakes up. And if I don't open my eyes, the world wouldn't have. So they believe that they're the center of everything. It's normal for a child to believe that. So when mother is cruel or is cold, then their first thought is, what did I do? And how can I fix it? So if you don't challenge that through counseling, then you go through life thinking that every frown that somebody frowns at you or every time somebody's mad, it must be my fault. What did I do? Instead of realizing that everyone is responsible for their own behavior. And for a mother to be cold to a child as punishment is cruel and unusual punishment. And it's not normal, and it's not her fault. When I would work with children, back when I used to many years ago, I would tell kids, you didn't cause it and you can't fix it. And that's the hardest thing in the world for me to get across to an adult child of a narcissist. It's not your fault. It's not about you. It's how they see the world. And that comes to the next thing, the pattern or the feeling that I see from adult children of narcissists. The codependency is so deep. They believe that if they would just say something the right way or hold their mouth right or not bring up this or not say that, then the other person would finally come around and they'd go, oh, I call it the slap forehead moment. That narcissist is going to say, oh, you're right, I'm wrong. I'm so sorry I've treated you so badly all these years. Of course, it never happens because it's not about you and there's nothing you can do to fix it. And that's the hardest message out there.
Yeah. So the thing is fixing yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it isn't their fault, and it isn't anything that they can take any action upon. And when we try to change somebody and mold them into something, especially a parent, they've always been that way. They're not going to see if you tell them they're a narcissist and you've been mean to me. They're not going to just go, oh, I'm so sorry, let me fix that. And as the codependent fixers, we want to fix it. We want to make everyone happy. And we're always walking on eggshells because we're waiting for that next disownment. Do a lot of other narcissistic children of narcissistic parents get disowned all the time? Is that a common?
Yes. Oh, yes, because that is the ultimate threat. Remember, I talked about the survival mechanism. We realize that we are the totally dependent person on the parent to survive. If they don't feed us, if they leave us by the side of the road, if they throw us against a wall, I mean, we could die. So to disown you is to abandon you. And that goes deep into that survival mechanism that all of us have. So it's the biggest threat there is to be disowned.
I was doing an
pull it out.
Yeah, I was doing an interview with a lawyer in Chicago a few weeks ago, and something she said just struck so powerfully. With a narcissistic parent, she said she sees them changing the will on a monthly basis.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, that explains my mother. When she died, she had 15 wills that were within the last 2 years. And it was like, okay, this golden child, she gets it all. Oh, she didn't bring me cookies. She goes down, this one goes up. I mean, the lawyer's head was spinning. He's like, she's got 3 daughters. This really shouldn't be hard. Bing, bing, bing. But I was so shocked to see how flippy. I mean, I know my own mother's behaviors. I didn't know until I became the person in charge of her estate that she had done this flip-floppy over the years. And I guess I was lucky that when she flip-floppied, I got to be the executor, and that just meant that for all the other years, I might not have even been in the will. I think that's something. Go ahead.
My protector husband, who is wonderful, has a saying with my mother. It's not what have you done for me, it's what have you done for me today. Because every day is a new story, and you may have fallen on your face for her yesterday and given her everything she wanted, but it's a new day, and every day they start over. So yeah, that wheel can change like that.
Isn't that crazy? Well, that's a sign people can look for.
It's true.
So now that we've kind of identified some of the things and behaviors, what advice can you give someone on how to heal? Like, what kind of therapy? What should they do to understand this and make themselves whole again?
It's important that you choose a life coach or therapist who is skilled in this, because a therapist who does not understand the dynamics or hasn't studied them might want to bring the narcissist in. That is a technique we use with normal people, and to try to reach some understanding in the therapy room. That is a disaster with a narcissistic parent. It will only open up more wounds and more floodgates for more abuse. If not in the room, then when you leave the room. So finding someone who is well-versed in the subject, and then remembering that these resources, and if you're watching this, then you know that there are resources for you, and learning and taking the time to take care of yourself. In the book, one of my favorite exercises is day 7, which is page 22. Thank you. On day 7, I ask you to find a picture of yourself as a child, and then list 5 wonderful things about you as that child. And then there's a pledge I have you sign to protect her. And that kind of thing is important. And then reading up about this with different authors. Dr. Carol McBride is our leading therapist in this field. There's also books about the unavailable mother, the emotionally absent mother. There's so much that will knock your socks off when you see how familiar it is. So take care of you. Take the time to get some help. I know it feels weird to put yourself first by getting therapy, because your whole life you have put everybody else first. But get help for these things, and go for books and resources and podcasts and websites.
Thank you. I think that's absolutely the best advice. I had a client the other day that just said, can I just go in for therapy? If I was an alcoholic, I could go away for a month and be better. I'm like, there isn't, but we have to do the work. And when people say do the work, I think they get really confused. What does that mean? That means pick up your book. It is a 30-day inspirational exercise book, and she gave you some examples there, but you sit there and by filling out this book, you are looking into your memories, you're validating yourself, you are seeing good things in you as a child, like she just described, that you've forgotten. But when you hold on to that love for yourself and you go really deep by doing the work, by reading Dr. McBride's book, you're educating yourself and you take on less of the baggage.
Exactly.
You know, all of that means that we're not going to go, it's our fault and I have to fix it. When you've done this work, you are in a place of acceptance, and you're in a place of wholeness that takes away that responsibility and makes you a better mother, a better person, and a better spouse. Because
Absolutely.
if you've been beaten your whole life and just made to feel small, and I'm not saying physically beaten, but if someone is constantly telling you, oh, you're really wearing that shirt today, or they're, you know, little tiny digs add up over time, and they make us question much more than other people do. So by doing the work and picking up your book, I think it's going to be a wonderful thing. I'm going to be bringing it to my meetup next week, because I've got a lot of adult children of narcissists, and I'm going to encourage them to go get it. How would they get this book? Where can they find it?
The book is on my website, rockwall-counseling.com, rockwall-counseling.com. That's an immediate download. You can purchase it right away, print it out yourself. It's also on Amazon. The book that you're holding in your hand, the spiral bound copy, is available on Amazon. And then, thank you. And then it's also available on Kindle, which is a more difficult version to read because you have to have a journal in hand to do it. But it's available all three of those ways.
Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest that people who are going through this look for someone that is qualified to help you. Look for someone, and you do work with people from all over the place remotely, correct?
I do. If you're a citizen of Texas, then we're doing licensed professional counseling. If you're outside of Texas, we're doing life coaching. But yes, I can work with any adult on this one-on-one. Now, my practice is all remote, so everything is Skype, FaceTime, or phone, and works very well.
Yay, good. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. People can find your therapist bio on my site, narcissistabusesupport.com, although we'll put your name down below and your website, and so people can reach out and learn more about your new book and the things that you can offer hope to victims of a narcissistic parent. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I've loved doing this.
Yay!